Hi everybody, welcome back to Charming Data. Today we are going to learn all about the Dash Bootstrap. So we're going to see how to design and control the layout of our app. We're going to see how we can control the title, how we can change the drop-down sizes. You see they're not equal right now. How we can change the space between the drop-downs. We're also going to see how we can change the CSS, the background color. If we make this smaller and it's a smaller screen size, we'll see how the pie charts change from big to small. I mean, this is actually doubled in size than the right pie. And if it's a medium or a large screen, then they are the same size. We can also see how we are going to change the button type. There's going to be like edges in here and maybe the arrow and stuff like that. So we're going to do all this with Dash Bootstrap. In order to start, you have to, you don't have to, but you should probably, under the video, just download the links and just open the links so you can more easily follow along. We're going to use this code here, and we're going to use data from Berlin. I think it's 2012 to 2019, about different crime rates in Berlin, specifically the neighborhoods inside Berlin. All right, so the first thing you want to do, look at this supporting document inside under the video. And the first thing you want to do is make sure you install your Dash, Plotly Express, and Dash Bootstrap components so you can actually create this app and the layout. So go into your Python IDE. I'm using PyCharm. Go into terminal and just install, just do like pip install Dash if you don't have Dash, Plotly Express if you don't have Plotly Express, and the last one would be pip install without the A, pip install Dash Bootstrap components. It takes about 4 minutes and you can get started. All right, you can also do that with Conda if you prefer. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to copy paste this link if you're using Python file. If you have a notebook, an IPYNB file, because you're using Jupyter, then make sure you copy this this code, because you can see the green is what's different than this code right here. So copy paste it, and we'll put it inside our code. We're actually gonna hashtag this out because we don't need this for now. We'll do this later. And we're going to copy paste in here like that. Okay, save it. And now let's run it. Let's go run. It's going to rerun. And now you see that this is a basic app with one button. So it has success and it's green, and this has an indent on the corners because we are using the Bootstrap theme. We're also using the DBC, which is Dash Bootstrap Component button, and this DBC button has these parameters inside of it. We're not going to go over the Dash Bootstrap components today. In different tutorials, we will definitely go over it. It's right here. Go into components, and you'll see that there's all these different components that you will learn later about. Today, we're going to focus on the themes and how we can control the themes. All right. So let's look into that. Go down here and let's see here. So if you click on this link, you'll see that this is the default theme right here. It opens this link, and this is a default theme right here. You can actually copy the CSS file or the HTTP URL and just do this. BS equals, and just make that into a string. This that you see here is exactly the same thing as this. It's reading the CSS file from the internet into the external style sheets. So it's exactly the same thing as this. All right. Now, this is important to know because of the thing we're going to learn in about 2 minutes. If you want to change different themes and you don't want to use Bootstrap, maybe you want to use a different theme, just click on this link right here. And this will open this web link right here. And here you can see all the different themes that you can use. So if you want to use, let's say, Cyborg, that has a black background and a different green color to the success button, all you have to do is go into the code and just, instead of Bootstrap, just write Cyborg. But make sure it's in capital letters, capitalized. And this is not going to work. Cyborg. Oops, come on. Cyborg, close the list. Okay, now if you save it and run it, it should have a different color to it. Let's run it here. Okay, now you see that has a black background and this color exactly like the Cyborg theme that we see on the internet. So you can easily change it to any other theme you want. You can change it to Litera or Cerulean or any other theme. Just make sure that you capitalize it and just put the name right here. All right, the default is Bootstrap, so we're just going to use Bootstrap as default. Now, as we saw before, this is actually taking the URL. It's taking it from the internet, HTTPS. In the URL. If you don't want to take it from the internet because maybe your job has a firewall or you have a very strong antivirus and your computer won't allow you to do that, or if you want to play around with the CSS code, then you can save it locally. And to do that, all you have to do is follow these steps, which is you go in here. Where was it? It's right here. You go in here, you choose the theme that you want. Let's say we want Cerulean. And then you click on this right here, and then you'll click to download bootstrap.min.css. Download this CSS file. It will download into probably your downloads folder or wherever it is by default. And then cut it and paste it into an assets folder where your code is located. So my code, bootstrap_intro, the py file, is actually, this file is actually inside this folder. But you have to create a new folder and make sure you spell it correctly and have lowercase letters, assets, all right? You have to create this assets folder, go into that, and here's where you paste the CSS file that we just downloaded from the internet that I think was Cerulean. So now it's in there, and you got to make sure that you erase this. You have to erase external style sheets because you don't want to have two different style sheets. And now the Dash app will automatically read it from the assets folder. So you will see that this will change to a Cerulean theme. Let's run it again. So we'll change to a Cerulean theme, refresh, and now you see this is Cerulean, which has a white background and this type of green color for the button. So I can't really stress it enough. If you use an assets folder, right here, and inside the assets folder, you have the CSS form, make sure that you delete the external style sheets parameter inside of this. You don't want to have both. Okay, so we're going to keep Bootstrap, and I'm going to delete this assets folder. Or at least you don't want to have both with the same CSS. Maybe you can play around with it if they're different CSS. I have files. I haven't tried it, but we're just going to use the external style sheets from the internet. Okay, so we did that. Now we're going to go into our layout. You just learned how to download different themes and how to use different themes. Now we're going to go into the meat of the tutorial and look into the layout. So what do we do with the layout? The layout, let's actually erase this because we don't want this anymore. We don't need it. And then on hashtag this. All right, save. Okay. Okay. So now let's go back to our layout instructions or lessons. The first thing you want to know is that the rows are defined first and then the columns. So the rows wrap the columns. So we'll define our, we'll call our app. We're going to read the CSS file into a pandas data frame. Then we're just going to group it so it's only taking the median of these columns by district. And then we're going to create the layout. So this is the app layout. You'll see that is very big. Let's zoom out here so you can see it. It goes all the way from here all the way down here to the end. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4 different rows. And each row we have columns. Let's zoom in. So you see how here we have, in this row we have one column with an HTML component in it. That belongs to Dash. In this row we have an HTML div with one column. And in this row we have 3 columns. And in each 3 columns, in each column we have a Dash core component dropdown. So don't get confused. One is a Dash DCC is a core component dropdown. It's a dropdown that belongs to Dash. And this is a column component that belongs to Dash Bootstrap, right? This is a DBC and this is DCC. So you can have, here we're using the Dash dropdown component, but you can also use Dash Bootstrap component dropdown if you prefer. But we're just going to use a DCC. All right, so remember, the columns go inside the rows. And then define column width. We're going to define the column width. Every page, very important for you to know, every page is divided into, let's save this and run it so we can actually have it. Okay. Every page is divided into 12 invisible columns. So from left all the way to the right, imagine we have 12 columns in here. So if you choose a component, a pie chart, to have 6 columns, or this whole graph, then it's going to divide the page into 2. If you want the pie chart to have 3 columns, then it's going to be around 1/4 of the page is going to be a pie chart, and the rest is going to be something else. So this is what width is doing. Width defines how many columns you want for each component. If you don't define, we'll start with A. If you don't define width, like width equals 3 or width equals 4, then the component will expand to all the space that it has, that it can expand into. So for example, here, let's not define width. Let's hashtag this out. This is a column of the HTML issue. This is our title. Cat's going crazy, killing the birds. Chapulín. So this is our title. We're not defining the width. And now if we go in here, you'll see that it went all the way to the left because we'll go over offset in a sec. And this is tricky. It looks as if it's ending here. It's not ending here. This is the text ends here, but this actual HTML H3 component is actually going all the way to the right. It's taking up the whole page all the way right here. And we can show proof that it's doing that because if we just extend the string, you'll see that it goes the whole page because we did not define the width. If you do define the width, then it'll be exactly the amount of columns you tell it to be. Here we're going to say the column is going to be size 6. You can do this way, column size 6, or you can just do it this way, width size 4. Whatever you prefer is a way to define the size of the width. So we'll see that in this column with this component is a div where it has this string with size 4, meaning that, let's save this, meaning that right here this only goes up to 4 columns. That is why it's stopping right here. So right here is about 1/3 of the page, all of this, and this is 4 columns. Probably another 4 is right here, and the other 4 is right here. So if we chose 6, some of this text will probably go until the middle, and then it'll overlap and go down here. So this is how you define the width of each column. But there's much more to that. Width you can also define as a dictionary of keys and values. And you already saw dictionary of keys and values. You already saw how we did this. The width of key size and value 6. In addition to those, to the size key, this dictionary of width has 2 other keys. So width will have also size, offset, and order. So it has 3 different possible keys you can put inside a width dictionary. The size, you have 3 different options for the value. You can do 1 to 12, true, or auto. If we do, let's cancel offset right now because we don't know how to use that right now. So size 6 is an integer from 1 to 12, or you can put true, or you can put auto. If you put, the difference between auto and true is the following. If you put true, it means that this H3, is it H3? Yeah, H3, HTML H3 part of the page is actually going to take up the whole space up until here because there is no other DBC column inside this row. There is no other component inside this row. This is the only component, which is why this will take up the whole row. If there was another column, DBC column inside here, dbc.call, and and we put whatever, something else in here, then this will only take this will probably take half of it, and this will take the other half. So that's true. It will take only all the size that you let it to take. You can also put true auto, and auto means that this will expand all the way to whatever it needs to expand. So in this case, it will expand up until the end of the string, right? Because the string ends in layout. So in this case, it probably ends somewhere right here, which is about 3 columns. Okay, so that's the difference between auto and true. It's hard to visualize because you actually can't see these columns are invisible. But now that it's auto, this HTML.h3 is probably only up until here, taking this space of the page. And if it was true, it would be taking up the whole page, even though you don't see it. Okay. But in our case, we just defined it as, what did we define it as? We defined it as, I think it was 6, right? Yeah, 6 and offset 3. Okay, so that was with size. We defined the size key. Now let's look into offset. Offset can only be defined by, the values of an offset is only from 1 to 12 integers, because there's 12 columns, so only 1 to 12. Offset means it's the number of columns or invisible columns to the left of the component. So, for example, here I have offset. The size of this HTML3 is going to be 6 columns, but I'm going to have 3 columns to the left that is going to be like empty space. So you'll see here these are 3 columns that is an empty space. If I change that, I just want to have 1 column as empty space, and I save it, you'll see that now this will move all the way to the left, and there's 1 column empty space, and this is 6 columns. I mean, the text ends here, but it's probably taken all the way up to here to the middle of the page, because a little bit more, because that's 6. Very important to remember that offset also represents columns. It's invisible columns, but it's also a column. So if we go down to the example right here, and we go into the one second, and we go into the drop downs, right? This is DBC row with 3 different columns and drop downs, and we have size 3, offset 2. This means that we're taking up 5 columns of the page. Drop down, last drop down. This means the second one is taking another 5 columns of the page, because it's 4 and 1. So if I have 5 columns here and then 5 columns here, this cannot be bigger than 2, because you only have 12 columns in the page. So make sure that if this is bigger than 2, it's going to overlap, and this is not going to, it's going to drop down. It's not going to be on the same row anymore, because adding up, it adds up to 13 columns, and the page does not have 13 columns, so it drops down here. So make sure that it only adds up to 12 when you calculate size and offset if you're using offset. If you use offset 0, then that's fine. Then you don't have any space to the left, and this component only uses 3 columns. This will use, put this 0, this will use 4 columns, and then here you can put 3 plus 4 is 7, then you can put here 5 columns if you want, all right? But make sure to always add up offset and size, because that is what it's, how it works, okay? So you see here we cancel the offset, so they are of different column size. All right, so that was the offset and size, and now we're going to look into order. Order is just you're defining the order of the components on the page from left to right. If you don't define order, it's just going to read the code from up down. So let's say we don't define order here. We'll do this, and we'll do this, and we will do this. If we don't define order, what we're expecting to see is the drop down with placeholder last drop down. This one will be the first one to the left, and then this will be in the middle, and then this one will be all the way to the right. So the middle one will be all the way to the right, so you'll see last, first, and the middle one all the way to the right, because that's the order we're writing our code. But if you want to make it different, you want to change the order of the components inside that row, just define order. From 1 to 12 if you have 12 different components. In this case, or columns. In this case, we have only 3, so we're just going to say first is going to be first, middle is going to be second, and then last is going to be third. And if you save it and it reran, you'll see that it will change first, middle, and last. Okay, because we defined the order. All right. Oh, you can also define order by first or last. If you have like 2 components, or if you have 3 components, you can just say, instead of order, you can just say last, and instead of first, you can just say first if you want. Okay, however you want to define it, it doesn't really matter. All right, so we defined our width. Now, this width that we defined was only for this screen. It was only for probably this large or extra large screens that I'm using by default. But what if you want to tell the app to change the size of the components according to the screen size? Right now, the way we defined it right here, using width and all this, is telling the app or the browser to always use this width size and this offset and this order, right? Always use this, no matter the screen size. But maybe if the user of your app is using a cell phone or a smaller screen like a tablet, you want to make sure that the components change size, because you don't want the same size for those kind of small screens. To do that, you need to go into here, D. D is a way to define different sizes of components and columns according to the screen size. So you only have 5 different screen sizes: extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. Then this is the way to define them. You will go under here. Let's go close this. You go here. Okay, look at the last row where we have 2 columns, and each column has a graph, a pie chart. And in this pie chart, we're defining it this way. You see, outside of the DCC graph, but inside the column, the DBC column, we have width and this. So don't pay attention to width right now. Just look at this. By saying, I'm just going to explain what it says here. I'm saying large, on large screen size or higher, large or extra large. Open the dictionary. The size of the pie chart is going to be 6, offset 0, so there's no columns on the left, and this is going to be the first order. I don't really have to use this because this is first anyhow, but just for example purposes. So size 6, offset 0, and the second chart, because I already took up half the page, I'm going to put the second chart, the second pie chart, I'm going to do another 6 columns. So if I save this and I run it, if my screen is large or extra large, they're going to be exactly cut in half, one on this side and my pie chart on this side. You see, this is large, this is very large, this is extra large, I'm assuming, and see what happens when we go down here, when we suddenly make it medium. You see how this pie chart is double the size of this? Why is that? Because here we define width as 8 and width as 4. So this is exactly what happens when you define width alongside, in addition to the large, medium, or whatever screen size. This means that if anything under large, which means medium or small or extra small, the width would be 8, and in this pie chart, the width would be 4. So this is what it's really doing. Width is the default of anything that you did not define here. All right. So let's do one more example so you better understand. Let's say medium. Medium. Oops. MD. And this is MD. And let's say the size will be 7, and this size 12 will have 5 because 7 plus 5 is 12. And if this means that the pie chart should be, the left one should be about 7 columns, and the right one should be about 5 columns in size. And if it's smaller than medium, if it's small or extra small, we want each pie chart just to take up 6 columns. So they'll divide the page half in half. So now if we save this, and this is probably small right here, we'll see if we rerun it, we'll see half and half. One pie chart to the right and one pie chart to the left, exactly half the page, because this is how defined width in small and extra small screen sizes. But if the screen size is medium or bigger, then the left one is going to take up 7 columns. So probably up until here. Let's see if it's medium right here. See how this is now taking up about 7 columns, and this is 5 columns. Or bigger, large or extra large, it's going to still be taken up. They're the same size here, the pie chart, but this is taken up, you see 7 columns. You see there's more space here to the left, and this is taking up only 5 columns. So remember, the width and the large doesn't change the size of the graph, it just changes how much of the page it takes up, right? Okay, so make sure you reviewed the documentation inside the layout right here, which is below the video, so you can read more about it. At the very bottom, you'll see all the different parameters that the DBC column has and the DBC row. And make sure to use the right parameters in the right place. Width belongs to an MD, and LG belong to the DBC column parameter. Row has different parameters. Row has no gutters, for example. Let's see what happens when we have no gutters false. You see that? No, now it has gutters here, right? Right here in between the drop downs. So make sure that you use this correctly. You read more about the documentation so you can become an expert on this and create beautiful dashboards. Never give up. Keep practicing. Don't forget to like the video if you learned something from it, and feel free to subscribe below. Turn on your notification for this channel so every week you'll get an updated video on different layouts and different powerful dashboards in Python using Dash. Thank you. Have a good day.